Exposure to ultraviolet radiation poses a risk to welders everywhere. Diseases like ocular melanoma, along with other conditions, are well-known and heavily researched outcomes of unsafe UV exposure. With this in mind, I set out to gain some key knowledge on the subject. My first chat was with Una Rappaport, an ophthalmologist specializing in cornea, refractive, and cataract surgery at Manhattan Eye in New York City. She says unprotected welding can essentially cause an acute burn to the eyes, usually referred to as arc flash or welder's eye.
And you can get this most commonly, it's occupational, so welders essentially. Now I see it often in welders who are so experienced. They're in and out, every day, and they say, well, it's just 5 minutes, or oh, I'm just showing somebody something, and it just takes that little bit without protection that can cause it. So those are usually the types of patients I see it in. But usually patients come in with intense burning, intense tearing, light sensitivity, pain, grittiness, can't keep their eyes open. It literally feels like a sunburn, but on your eye. Incredibly, incredibly painful.
So is that something that they'll feel right away when it happens, or is that gradual sort of development, I guess, over time?
Yeah, it happens pretty much right away. It might not happen instantly, but at the end of the session, by the time they're in my office, they're beyond in pain, and it might get worse as the day goes on, but it sort of happens right away.
If the burn is severe, Rappaport says the cornea appears glazed over.
When it's actually swollen, it's supposed to look clear when it's healthy. But when it's edematous or swollen, it looks cloudy, it looks opaque, and it shouldn't. If sometimes you don't notice it right away, it can get worse over the course of the next 12 hours. And there's different levels of symptoms, different levels of light sensitivity, tearing, grittiness, pain, depending on the severity of the burn or of the keratitis itself.
Like, I've kind of heard that if you're even nearby when someone's welding and you're sort of not protected and you're close enough, it could affect them as well. I don't know if that's something you've run into.
It's all cumulative. So if you pop into a room for 30 seconds a minute, probably not. If you're there for, you're not directly looking at it, but there's always light that reflects. That's the mechanism by which you get it from snow blindness, right? It's the reflection of the UV rays.
This sounded familiar as I began chatting with Jerome Spear, a member of the American Society of Safety Professionals. Spear also works as a certified industrial hygienist and certified safety professional. Spear says he experienced arc flash working inside an industrial plant with various reflective alloy materials inside.
I experienced it once that I recall when I was on a job site in the early 90s. And we were in an operating facility, so we were building a sphere on the ground next to another sphere that we were going to have a turnaround after we completed the construction of the sphere, and then place it on top of the existing sphere, essentially, and attach the two together. But this new sphere had a number of different internals, mostly alloy material, stainless steel, Inconel, and things of that type. So I was a field engineer on the job, and I was doing some layout. And since we were in an operating part of the plant, they had a requirement that we had to wear monogoggles. And I don't know if you ever experienced wearing monogoggles on the construction site or anywhere for that matter, but they fog up, and that's the problem. In terms, I wasn't necessarily directly exposed to the welding arc, but because of the reflection of the materials.
Right.
And then I had pulled down my monogoggles, because sweating and fogging up, and we're up in the air, so you got risk of fall hazards and stuff like that. So, and then I felt the effects later that night.
You can't keep your eyes open at all. You're in excruciating pain. Most people just go and close their eyes in a dark place. Sometimes I put a bandage contact lens or a special membrane on top as well. But you are out of work and really out of commission. It's hard to help out around the house or whatever social engagements you have. So prevention is key. Things that prevent healing are older age, diabetes, autoimmune conditions like rheumatoid arthritis. In a young, healthy, let's say 25-year-old, should heal within 3 to 5 days completely. And it slowly gets better over that course. Now, it also depends on how bad the burn is, but sort of an average burn would be, somewhere around 5 days. You can get scarring of the cornea. If you get enough damage, you can actually cause damage to the epithelial stem cells. And then the top layer, eventually the epithelium won't regrow and won't repopulate. And that's a very big problem if it can't regrow. And you can also be more prone to scratches even when it's completely healed. So you definitely want to avoid repeat insults. You have it once, okay, then you're just living in those goggles after that.
Kevin Beckerdite, Global Product Manager at ESAB, says arc flash is more common than one might assume.
A pretty substantial portion, if not everybody, if you're doing welding on a full-time basis, you've probably experienced a flash from your arc device, and it'll cause some discomfort to some degree. Hopefully it happens maybe once and you remember to lower your shield or your equipment is functioning properly. But any more than once, and it's you're not happy with with your welding activity.
He also brought some of ESAB's products with him during our chat, which was awesome.
Today's the more modern helmets today, and I'll show you, use what's called an automatic darkening filter, which is this screen right here. If you can, every welder is familiar with this type of device. So this is a typical premium level welding helmet, and this device allows you to keep your helmet in the lowered position. And this screen will actually instantly get dark before the arc light hits your eye. And it does that for you. You don't have to raise the hood or anything. In the past, and still available today, are what's called a passive filter, which is permanently dark. And if you want to inspect your work after you've done some welding, you have to physically lift your hood. Basically, it's like an LCD type of technology. So what happens is there's floating crystals in this filter, and when they're exposed to light, they instantly turn on their side and darken the visor for you. And it happens in like less than a millisecond type of thing. So it literally acts faster than the light is able to hit your eye. So it's pretty impressive.